what is enlightenment? Like in a nutshell, if you had to just say it in a sentence or two to somebody who doesn't grasp the significance, because enlightenment can seem just like, oh, it's like an emotional state that I have, or it's an idea, or just even a cool insight. But it's so much deeper than that. So how would you describe it in a nutshell?
Well, yes. Enlightenment is not a state, it's not an experience, it's not an emotion, it's not an insight. Those are all functions of mind. And enlightenment is not about mind. It's not about body either. But enlightenment is becoming conscious, and usually we don't have space for that. We don't think that we can become conscious of what's true. So I guess the first thing is we'd have to consider that that what we perceive now is not what's absolutely true. And people usually don't even have that thought, because what we perceive now is everything. See, it's like everything. We think that is the world. That's everything. Because that's everything that they perceive. It's everything that goes on. So we think that, and then, we move on from there. But like I say, that's a function of being an organism. That's a function of surviving in a world in which, we create perceptions so that we can do that. But it's not what's absolutely true. And if you recall, you don't know how it is you began. Somehow you suddenly you existed. And you've worked really hard. But before that, you didn't exist. So in order to become a human, you had to invent being a human. You don't remember probably much about doing that, but you probably remember some of doing that. As a kid, kind of inventing yourself, creating ways of thinking about yourself or others or reality, learning stuff. Yeah. And so that's basically where all of our consciousness is trapped. That's basically where all of our attention goes, is doing that.
So the thing is, when you are a kid, what happens is generally, what happens is when you are a kid, you are observing the world. So generally, most people when they're kids, I mean, they have parents, right? Generally speaking, of course, unfortunately, some kids don't get to experience having parents, but generally, you have parents who care for you, and they protect you from the world, and they provide for you financially. So you have nothing to worry about. Um, so what you do as a kid is there's no pressure on you. Everybody is nice to you. So you feel pretty safe in the world when you're starting out. Again, generally speaking. So when when the mind feels safe, what it does is it just observes everything, because see, the default, something that you cannot remove from the mind is the attention. um, you are always attentive to something. You're observing someone, something, and this applies for everybody. But as a kid, because you don't have any kind of pressure on you, you are completely free. So you are when you are, let's say, when you're playing right in the park, in the playground, you're observing a car went by, someone is walking by, you're observing them, you're observing your other playmates, you're observing your buddies, um, you're observing somebody, maybe somebody came by and that person is walking his or her dog, you're observing that. You're observing. And well, you're not enlightened. So some people may get confused. They say that people are born enlightened. Like children are born enlightened and then they get brainwashed by society, and then they get out of that enlightened stage by being as a part of society. When they grow up, they become unenlightened. That's not really true. I mean, kids. So I think somebody said that, but I don't exactly remember. But the point is that kids are closer to enlightenment in some sense that adults, because adults have been brainwashed. So when a kid grows up, now the kid has financial responsibilities, and different responsibilities comes up. You realize that you have grown up. You have all these hormonal changes that come up when you're a teenager. So it kind of and the biggest thing that people um I mean, I would say this is a very big thing that is kind of a plays a factor here. See, kids are asexual by nature. I mean, they don't have any sexual nature, right? Well, at least. So, I mean, obviously, generally speaking, kids don't have a sexual nature. They don't understand sexuality because their organs, the sexual organs haven't, I mean, they haven't become sexual creatures yet. But when adolescence hits, there are all the hormonal changes and stuff, right? So when the transformation from a kid to adult, a big part of an adult being is the sexual nature, right? So you become aware of sexuality and you become aware of sex in general. So that kind of in itself is a big distractor when it comes to awakening and um, becoming enlightened, becoming conscious of what the truth is, or becoming you can then say anything, God conscious or something like that. But the point is that uh, yeah, so sexuality plays that's a big uh, jump, like that um, makes a big difference where from a kid to an adult. So yeah, like I was talking about, like when kids are not enlightened by default. They are closer to enlightenment because they haven't been brainwashed, because they're not sexual yet. They are asexual, and they don't have any. They don't even. They're not even asexual. They don't even understand what sexuality is. They're not sex conscious. And secondly, they have not been successfully brainwashed by society. Now, when people talk about like societal brainwashing, like because what is the number one thing that prevents a normal person from becoming or being enlightened? Because enlightenment is, in some sense, it's your true self. I mean, not in some sense, in an absolute sense, it's your true self. Because if you're not enlightened, it just means that you're deceived. You're living in falsehood. Not that there's anything wrong with it. Now people get confused when they become conscious about what enlightenment is, or maybe they have their first awakening, or intellect from an uh, intelligence point of view. When people become aware that there's such a thing as enlightenment, that exists, and you can be that. A lot of people get scared because they feel that so what they're now that they're not enlightened, they feel like there's something wrong with it. Not really. I mean, there is nothing wrong with it, but enlightenment is kind of a worthy pursuit. You could think of it as a worthy pursuit. It's something to be passionate about. Like, um, yeah. So that's that. But the thing is that kids kids are closer to enlightenment, but that doesn't mean that they are enlightened or they can become enlightened, because generally a kid will be um, unenlightened in some ways. Because see, what enlightenment is, the difference between enlightenment and being unenlightened is it's just a matter of consciousness. So how conscious are you, or are you even conscious that you about self, being self-aware? Like like people talk about AI, right? Will AI become self-aware? It's kind of like that. Most people are like AI themselves. People ask like, will AI become self-aware? Dude, are you even self-aware? That's like a that's a good question, I would say, when it comes to understanding enlightenment and stuff, like what is enlightenment, right? So yeah, I mean, kids are not enlightened, but enlightenment, whether you can become that or not, um, I don't know. I think it takes a certain kind of a person. Everybody doesn't have to be enlightened, or like I sometimes wonder, like, does everybody have to become enlightened? Um, Certainly it depends. I'm not sure though. I'm not sure about that.
That job. But if we consider that somehow, say we were ignorant from the beginning and we are still ignorant, say we don't know any more about what we are or what existence is or what life is than we did in the beginning. All we've done is actually just learn about stuff. We've accomplished, a great deal, but we've learned about stuff. But we haven't gotten a direct consciousness of what this is, what consciousness is, what self is, what existence
See,
is.
the thing about enlightenment is, see, why people think the challenge. Enlightenment is challenging, right? Like most people don't understand what that is. The funny enlightenment is such a thing. See, everybody knows. Everybody is conscious about enlightenment, as in they know that such a thing exists. As far as enlightenment goes, people know that there's such a thing called enlightenment. But what most people don't know is that most people are not enlightened. Most people are unenlightened, but most people, probably each and every adult, is conscious that there's such a thing as an enlightened being. That's why, like, for example, like if you take the example of India, in India, most people are Hindus, right? Now, in Hinduism, there's this common culture for most Hindus. This is applicable. They have gurus, right? So they go to certain seminars, religious seminars, where they listen to their favorite monks and gurus, like whatever their Baba, like they're called Babas, right? Like, Baba ji, tell me I'm not getting married or something. Like they ask for solutions to their life's problems, to their Babas, right? So now these Babas, what they are is really, I mean, now the thing is, they might or might not be, but the point is that the concept of Baba is the same as being an enlightened person. So what happens here is these audience members who are these followers of this Baba, they are like the unenlightened people. And so what I'm trying to say is that obviously these audience members, who are like in millions, right? Billions, not billions, but billion, because India is a big country. More than a billion people live here. But the point is that, so in a particular session, let's say hundreds of thousands of people are attending a big seminar, and these unenlightened people. My point simply is that I'm trying to say that these unenlightened people, they are conscious. They know that the person that they're listening, who they're calling a Baba, that person is an enlightened, quote unquote, enlightened person. Now, it doesn't matter whether that person is actually enlightened or not. My point is that most people know that there's such a thing as enlightenment. They're aware of it. They know that some people become enlightened. There's such a thing. There's a possibility. That's a possibility. They acknowledge that. It's just that they think that they cannot become it. I mean, they feel like it's something above them. It's something superior. Like you have to be some kind of a superior God kind of a being to become that. That's why like people like Sadhguru, for again an example, Sadhguru is being cherished. Everybody, a lot of people. There's like a lot of people who listen to Sadhguru, because they consider Sadhguru as above them. Uh, Even though like Sadhguru probably doesn't consider himself above his audience members. he is just simply enlightened. He knows the truth, and he's just trying his best, just like this person in front of you, Mr. Peter Ralston. Being an enlightened person, he's trying his best to to communicate what he knows. But the problem is, what he knows um, is um, is only possible to be communicated if the listening person, the listening party, is capable of understanding. That's one thing. But then again, even a bigger problem with enlightenment and the whole awareness thing is you will forget. Honestly, that's the biggest problem. Doesn't matter how many times you listen about enlightenment, you're going to forget. And even if you have a few awakenings, you're going to still forget because you're still here in this matrix, like whatever you want to call it, matrix, life, reality, whatever you want to call it. You're still in this deceptive Maya, like in Hinduism, how they call it Maya, right? So you're still in Maya. And as long as you are in Maya, you will always forget. So, because there's no such thing as permanent enlightenment, at least I think so. I don't think there is such a thing as permanent enlightenment because I myself have already had a few awakenings, which are like mini awakenings or something, like a snippet, like a sneak peek, you can say. Like I've had a few sneak peeks into the reality or true vision or true or enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. But those are like episodic and they last for um a few minutes, maybe. Now, when you're enlightened, there's no such thing as time, so it's so hard to say. But and honestly, I can't even tell you how many times I've had awakening experiences for myself because I've had it a few times because I remember right now when I'm recording this. I have in my memory as this human biological self, I have a memory. And all I can recall, even though I don't know, because memory is what? You can tell the story that memory is in the brain, but memory is consciousness. Probably it's adjoint. It's probably adjoint to consciousness, or maybe it's infused with consciousness, something like that. But still, you forget, right? You can forget. If somebody hits my head with a iron bar, something, I don't know, I will lose all my memory. So what happens if you take away the memory of an awakened person? That person becomes a childlike person again. But that doesn't mean that that person will be awakened. That person will be unconscious. That person will not even unconscious. The person will lose all of his or her memories of being a human. So in some sense, he's again closer because if you take away all the memories of a person, what you're left with an adult human being with kind of like the mind of a child. In some sense, it's like a mind of a child, like an adult, grown up human baby. It's kind of like that because everything that you know about life is you're this adult human being, and you have these beard and mustache if you're a guy or whatever. This is all memory, right? This is all a construct. You have been watching and listening all of these stuff for the last, if you're 40 years old, you have been constantly, every day your brain is being bombarded with information for the last 40 years of your life. You're a man, you live in this country, you're part of this religion, you work in this company, this is your job title, this is your qualifications, and yada yada yada, right? All the stuff. So this is all like you every day since you wake up, you're in this story. You're like a video game character, honestly. Um, but you're not aware of it, and that is the difference. The only difference between awakening an awakened person and an unawakened person is the difference between awareness. Whether you're aware of it, whether you're self-aware, like they call it, like AI. Like most people are like AIs. they're like not aware at all. But some people are lucky enough to be aware. But the thing about awareness is like you'll forget, like because the biggest challenge I face as after a few awakenings, spiritual awakenings, whatever you want to call it, basically, you can just simply label it as awakening. After a few awakenings, the biggest challenge I think is you just forget. There's because I don't. So like if you ask me about my deepest awakening experience, all I can say is that um I was having dinner with someone, okay, and I had the awakening experience like half an hour before the dinner was about to begin. So I was in this very apartment actually. Now this is like my third or fourth awakening, but before that I had a few glimpses, very small, tiny awakenings. But this was a significant one as far as I remember. So I now the person asked me, "Let's go for dinner." I'm like, and I just had this, and I'm awoke. I've awakened. You know, I'm in that stage, and this person asks me, "Go for it. Let's go for dinner." I'm like, "Sure, yeah." Um, but the thing is, when I'm having the dinner, and this person is having some conversation with me, and I'm participating in the conversation, but it's like that. In that space, I'm there. Like I'm not a person anymore. When I recall my awakening experience, it's just that I'm there. I can see a person in front of me or in my vision field. You can say I'm this vision field, and there's a face in that field, like a head, and that head is talking, and that's that person, which you can say like it's in front of me. If I do it from the reference point of me being a human, so there's this head that is talking, and the head is talking, and the head is also it's very difficult, but the head is talking and listening at the same time because I am it, all of it. Uh, but it's hard to describe, even though the only thing I can say is that I didn't retain that same consciousness. I mean, I kind of went down. Maybe because of fear. I mean, probably the biggest challenge to awakening is fear because we get afraid. I was afraid. I was like, what is happening? I mean, if I stay in this current state of consciousness for too long, I feel like I'll go crazy. I mean, because people will call me crazy, right? So is that fear? The biggest fear of awakening or people who are entering, maybe sometimes I believe there are a lot of people who had mystical experiences, but they're just too afraid to admit it because there's I mean this is like 100% possibility that you will be labeled as a crazy person, and you will lose all your friends and your family members will disconnect from you. That's a very big possibility. And are you ready for that? Probably not, right? I mean, see, the challenge with awakening and spirituality and enlightenment and all this stuff is because it's not mainstream. People are still, this is the early stages of people as far as the collective human consciousness goes. Most people don't are not comfortable with the idea of awakening, even though we know that such a thing exists. um it's kind of in a sense it's like talking about sex in public, you know how some things are considered a taboo topic. You don't talk about them because it makes people uncomfortable for whatever reason. Awakening is like that. I mean, you know it's there, you know that it exists, and you know that you are somehow connected to it, but you just don't want to talk about it because it's just too complicated for most people, and it's too it makes most people uncomfortable, frankly speaking. But then again, you know that there is some sort of significance of that, So what most people do is they kind of keep it as far as, see, in life we prioritize things, right? We know that, okay, so when I'm 30 I'm going to get married. Okay, so when I'm 40, I'm going to probably have a midlife crisis, so I'm going to have to be prepared for that. I'm going to retire at 60. So we have these plans, right? We prioritize things. We plan our life. I gotta eat healthy, I gotta be healthy, I gotta go to the gym, right? Because otherwise, when I'm 60 years old, I will have back pain, I will have arthritis, I have so many problems, heart problems and stuff, right? So I gotta quit smoking because it's bad. In my later life, it's gonna hurt me. So I'm gonna have to retire at 60. So I'm gonna have to plan my retirement. So when I'm 60 years old, I'm so that I have to. I'm worried, like, financially, I have to be safe when I'm 60, right? So we have all these fears at the back of our head, and so in amidst all these prioritizing, we kind of give enlightenment and awakening a low priority. I think everybody has that in some way, their priority checklist. So it's just that for most people, it's like, yeah, sure, awakening, spirituality, enlightenment, yeah, sure, sure. I know that's important, but I just can't afford to think of it right now because I have my whole life ahead of me. So I'm going to have to keep this one at the bottom of the priority list. And, which is, I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's just that, it's just how it is. It's just the fact of it. I mean, there's nothing to discuss about it, but that's just a insight or something like, that's good to know, like that's how most people operate. That's all I'm saying.
That it's off the charts. It has nothing to do with charts. It has nothing to do with scales. It has nothing to do. That's one of the problems, you see, with all the questions and the wondering and the trying to find an answer about enlightenment, is all of that is done in the same world. It's done in a relative world, and enlightenment is absolute. It's not about a relative thing. And so when we hear absolute, we think, whoa, that's really big because it's absolute, No, it's just true. It just means absolutely true. Yeah, just the truth. And so, enlightenment is you yourself becoming conscious of what's true, directly conscious of what's true.
See, enlightenment, simply speaking, enlightenment is just the realization that nothing exists, nothing actually exists. Like, so, like, you think of, like, so for example, I have this remote in front of me. Okay, this is a television remote, or like this microphone, right? Um, I just want to, like, I don't want to make any mistakes. I'm just trying to be conscious so as to, because I don't want to confuse people more. Like, people get confused, right, when they think about enlightenment. So so bear with me. That's why I'm becoming quiet once in a while. It's just I'm trying to frame it in the best of way so that you can get the best version of what enlightenment is, right? So let's say this mic, right? This microphone in front of me. Um, it's it's not even like, if I try to separate reality into this microphone, this again will be difficult, because the moment I tell you to focus on this microphone, what will happen is your attention will immediately divert from this entire vision field that was in front of you. From that, it will be directed to this microphone. And then when I say that this microphone doesn't actually exist and it's not real, you'll start thinking in this in the sense that, okay, so there was a microphone and this guy is saying that the microphone doesn't exist even though I can see it in front of me. It's not the best way to describe enlightenment. Okay, I'll try to do it in I'll take a different approach. Let's try it this way. So yeah, let's try it in the philosophical, conceptual, um how do you say this? The hypothetical sense. Like, let's try to understand it that way. Um, See, not the enlightenment is simply the realization that nothing exists. nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean like this. So I am this human, right? Speaking, making this recording, this YouTube video. It's just that when you become enlightened, it becomes everything becomes in the, you know how in English language they have active and passive uh tense, right? It's called tense or active and passive voice, right? Like he went to the coffee shop and like no, how do you say it? Like he went to the coffee shop. Then if that's the active sentence or the active voice, then or he is speaking. No, like the I picked up the coffee cup. The coffee cup is being picked up by me, right? You know, like the active and passive um, sentence transformation, the voice change. Or I picked up the remote, and you can say like the remote was picked up by me. You know, like how you s- say it, but in a reverse kind of a way, the active passive. So when you become enlightened, everything kind of feels in the passive sentence. It's kind of like that, that everything feels in the passive voice. Everything kind of changes. So in the non-enlightened, your everyday unawakened consciousness, you can think of like, so this guy is all right. If I want to say, I am recording, I'm a human, and I'm recording this YouTube video. But when I'm awakened, it would be more appropriate to say that it, this YouTube video is being recorded by this human. It's kind of like that, or rather, this, or rather, it will be even more accurate to say in the enlightened format is that um in this imaginary vision field, there's a we see in this imaginary vision field, we see a human uh speaking into a microphone, wearing headphones, wearing t-shirt, recording a YouTube video, and it's a reaction kind of a video. The human is listening to another human, so everything is kind of, you pull back and you're watching, like you're a observer from the from another point of view, kind of like you're from a third person perspective, and that you is what we call the god, and that is you, the you, which is the only thing that exists in this entire scenario. When I say nothing exists, the only thing that exists is the you, that is the god self, or that is the god, basically, that is um the whatever you want to call it, the universe or something, or that is the only thing. There's only one entity that exists, and that entity is is it's like that entity is imagining, frankly speaking, it's imagining everything. And this current moment, so you're obviously watching this as a YouTube video, so um so this is the current moment where you're watching. Mm, you're imagining, actually. Um, yeah, but see, this entity is doing everything. So now that is why language is, it's difficult. See, the problem with language, I'm using the English language, right? I can speak in any other language. Nothing will change because all language is dualistic in nature. The point of language is human to human, man to man communication, right? What was the purpose? Why are languages created? Languages created keeping in mind that two humans will use this to communicate among themselves. So when language was created, it was designed in a way where it was kept in mind that different people are different and they are going to communicate. So the objective of language is, it is created to for communication between two uh, separate humans, which are imagined by God. Everything is imagined by it, the entity, the only thing that exists. So when I'm trying to describe what I am, the God or whatever, right, the universe, the entity, um, it's very difficult to do it in the language because, and it's going to be always full with errors because of the very nature of language. Because the entity is the only thing that exists, and everything is imaginary. So it's very difficult to do that in that sense. But anyways, it's see, when you have a few mystical experiences, you realize that there's no more point living in deception. Like, if you live in deception after having any kind of awakening experience, you will feel very dissatisfied with your life. Just nothing is gonna satisfy you, because this is like the bomb in life. What do people generally do in life? People study, right? People try to go into good colleges and good universities because they want to go create a good career, right? They want to go to work for Google. That is a dream for a lot of people, right? A lot of people want to w- get a job at Google or Microsoft or maybe Apple, right? It could be a very dream job for most people to get a job at Apple. So, how the human mind works is that humans are wired to chase something that gives them more excitement, more fun. Life can be boring, right? I mean, who wants to become a farmer, right? Who wants to become a farmer? Like, you're this farmer. Maybe you're the son of a farmer. Do you think the son of a farmer would want to become a farmer? Probably not, right? Because he grew up in this farm and he's like, oh, this is such a boring job. We farm all day. There's nothing to do. It's like that. The crow is in the. There. It's just like nothing. It's just empty field. So boring. So humans want to enjoy their life. They want to have fun, and that's why they go to good colleges. They, at least they want to. They dream to go to good colleges, because at the back of the head, everybody just wants to have a more enjoyable experience out of this life. So if most people who are born, like, I think almost everybody who is born in third world countries, they want to eventually migrate to first world countries, right? Because they know that in first world countries, life is just more cool, right? They know the life is more fun in first world countries. They just want to move there. Um, Everybody wants to upgrade. You see the same thing with relationships in today's Gen Z kind of a situation. Like in the era of Gen Z, in the era of digital, everything going digital. Even people want to have better experiences when it comes to being in relationships. So most people are not satisfied with one person, or their wife or their husband or whatever, their girlfriend or boyfriend. They want to upgrade. They want to have a better boyfriend or a better girlfriend. So the very nature of humans is always to upgrade. We have this mindset. If you have an iPhone 16 Pro today, obviously you want to have a 17 Pro when it comes out next year, right? So it's just the very nature. We want to upgrade. Um, we, like people talk about this in a very negative sense. There's nothing negative or positive about it. It's just nature. It's just our nature as a human. Uh, so when you have um, this kind of a mindset, you want to become better. Now, when you become conscious, or when you have your first mystical experience, or when you have your first enlightening experience, you just realize that that is like the top level. As far as upgrading goes, you upgrade it to the maximum, like that you reach the top. In some sense, that's like the top. So from that, you're like, what? And you're like, where to go from here? See, because when you hit the top, even though awakening is not really, it's kind of a top actually. I mean, because Awakening is realizing that you are God. I mean, what is above that? There's nothing really above that. So you just kind of see, that's why, enlightened people, you find them in meditating under the tree, like Gautam Buddha, right? You know, they don't, they shave their head, they go live in some forest, they leave civilization, they leave their parents, their children, their family, they abandon everyone. Just go and live in a cave somewhere, right? And they're meditating all the time. And they even forget to eat. God knows what they eat. I mean, how do they even live, like physically, biologically? And they don't care about their biological existence anymore, because they just realize that they are the they just realize that they are it, that they are the creator, they are the person, they are not the person, but they are the entity, like I said, the only thing that exists, that is imagining all of this. In Hinduism, which is called the Maya, like all of this, everything that you see in front of you, everything is Moho Maya. That is what, when in Hinduism they say Maya, that's what they're referring to. The vision field, everything, the auditory field. Like if you were not a human, if you were a snake, let's say, a snake has a different vision field. The snake looks at the world and sees a very different vision field. Like dogs, they can listen to higher frequency ranges that you can, but that doesn't mean I mean, just because you cannot hear something, that doesn't mean that that doesn't exist. But that exists, but you are in this human format. So from the human point of view, you can't see it. But you are really everything, which is the entity. Um, and the entity is envisioning everything. And everything that it's envisioned, frankly speaking, nothing really exists. The truth is that you're just there and you're formless. You don't have a form. You don't have an address. You cannot be located. There's no location. God doesn't have any location. You cannot be located. You just exist. And you are all there is. And you're just imagining all of this. And everything. So when an enlightened person, see, this is interesting. I'll tell you something. When an enlightened person is talking to another enlightened person, and if they're being honest, what they will realize, and what they will frankly tell you, is that they are self-communicating. They're talking to themselves, but they will only, both the enlightened people have to be fearless enough to see, people think that enlightened people are perfect. Not really. Enlightened people have had different mystical experiences, and there are different kinds of awakening, and there are different levels. It's not really kinds, more like there are different levels of awakening. So let's say you have two genuinely enlightened people who are not afraid to openly express. So for example, um if Peter Ralston, see, I'll tell you this. If I am talking to Peter Ralston face to face, and I mean, at least from this video, I can see that he's fearless enough, because he has his own YouTube channel, and he has his own community where he tries to raise our consciousness in people. So if I'm talking to Peter Ralston, and we both know that we are awakened, we have had awakening experiences, we would both openly acknowledge that what we are doing is self-communication. It's just that God is talking to itself, or the universe, whatever you want to call it. You can label it as anything, doesn't matter. The words don't matter. The English language or any other language doesn't matter. The point is that the only entity that exists, which is all of it, doesn't exist any particular, like I'm doing this hand gesture to point it at somewhere, but it doesn't have a location. The entity is everywhere. You cannot really escape the entity, because the entity is everywhere. It's like the universe. It's there and it's infinite. And that infinity is communicating to itself. If two genuinely awakened people who are genuinely fearless about their awakening, if they communicate among themselves, that is what they were gonna tell you, that it's uh, the universe talking to itself. Um, yeah.
Not doing it is hard. Trying to do it might be hard, but doing it's easy. See, enlightenment is simply being where you already are. Boom, done.
See, I want to
Done.
remind you again, like he's obviously he's right. Enlightenment, awakening just happens. When it happens, it does. You become conscious. You just become aware of what your true nature is, or you just become aware of, yeah, like you. So when somebody becomes enlightened and they've heard about awakening and enlightened, they have some preconceived notions. What really happens is that they just become aware of, oh yeah, now I know. Yeah. Whatever I heard about enlightenment. Oh yeah, yeah, now I get it. It's like that. It's kind of like that. The awareness when it first time it hits, the first time you become have an awakening experience. To be honest, the first time it happens, it is so um because it's so big, you kind of are in the shock. You kind of become um shocked. Like like how they say culture shock. When you move to a different country, you have a culture shock, right? So enlightenment is kind of like that culture shock because that's new to you. Whenever you come across something that you haven't come across before, whenever human beings experience something new, you are shocked. That's the first reaction. So for the first awakening is gonna be shocking. You will probably not understand a lot because you'll be shocked, and after that you'll be like, "What the what happened?" And it'll be like that. But with time, as time goes on, as years pass, you'll realize that, yeah, yeah, now I get it. You'll be like that in that phase, like, oh yeah, I get it now. It's like that. So the second time, let's say you have a major awakening, because in the meanwhile you will have some episodic fragments. See, a lot of awakenings happen in the dream. So when we are dreaming, a lot of awakenings happen. But then the moment awakening happens in the dream, which is, at least it happens for me, I wake up. I'm like, because I get too excited. I'm like, and I wake up and my dream breaks. So, and then I'm like, what? I get pissed off, right? But the second time a genuinely major awakening happens, when you're not dreaming and when you're fully conscious and awake, when you're fully awake and you're awakening, um, I mean, when you're fully awake, like when you're not sleeping, and that consciousness, you have this awakening, major awakening experience, then you're not so afraid because you know that's not new and there's no culture shock anymore. The first time an Indian moves to America, there's a culture shock, gun violence, people are nasty, people are rude, and nobody cares. There's no morality, no ethics, um, stuff like that, right? People are so vulgar, nobody cares about their parents. People give young kids giving the middle finger to to their teachers. A lot of cultural shock. I mean, not just this. This doesn't happen anywhere. You move to a different country, you'll get a culture shock. But you go to the same country as for a second time, there's no more culture shock, right? Because you have already no. Well, what are you expecting? I mean, your expectation, your reality will match your expectations. The culture shock happens when expectation was a reality. You know how that meme goes. You were expecting something and you have a different reality, or something like that. But the point is, second time you go, your expectations are gonna probably match. 99% chance it's gonna match your reality, right? So no more culture shock. So same thing with awakening. The same second time you have an awakening, you're not gonna have a culture shock. So you won't be afraid anymore, which is the most important thing. You won't be afraid. So what you will do is you will be like, oh no, I'm having an awakening again. So every time I have an awakening in my life, I'm just focused. I try to learn as much as possible because I know that this awakening might be a mini awakening and it might not last for long. So I try to understand whatever is happening. I try to observe and I try to maybe I'm observing the my vision field. I'm observing my auditory field, whatever I'm listening to. Um, so I observe all my senses and I try to learn as much as possible so that I try to form a good memory so that because I know that the moment I come down from this high, kind of like an awakening is kind of like a high. So when I come down and to my sober consciousness, again speaking figuratively, when I come down to my sober consciousness, I just want to retain as much as possible. So yeah, that's how what awakening and the stuff really works. Yeah, and I feel like awakening because that is the highest achievement. Really, it's in a sense if you think of life in terms of achievements, different kinds of achievements, then awakening is it's like the highest achievement that a man or a woman like a human can experience, or that's the highest form of experience. You know, like how in today's day and age people want to go to space, they want to travel into space, they want to go to the moon, they want to go to Mars, but really the biggest achievement. So, see, if I ever get the opportunity to go outer space, if I ever get the opportunity to go above from the surface of the Earth and go to the International Space Station, maybe, and experience zero gravity, and go to the moon, I will feel very different. I will feel it from an consciousness point of view because I've already had awakenings. So I would that will be a mystical experience to me in some sense because I recently see. I'll tell you one thing. When you have had a few awakening experiences, different kind of uh, adventure sports feel different. So if you do bungee jumping after awakening, see this is a funny thing. When I was a kid and I didn't have any kind of awakening experience, and I used to go on the, like it's called the Ferris wheel, right? In the in playgrounds and stuff, or in you have this giant wheel. You call it giant wheel, a wheel, rotating wheel where you can sit in different places and it rotates. The Ferris wheel, the giant wheel. So I used to be really scared of the giant wheel. I mean, whenever it used to come down, I used to feel these butterflies in my stomach when I was on a roller coaster. Like when the roller coaster is going down, you feel butterflies in your stomach, right? Not anymore. If you're awakened, not anymore. Really, I mean, you don't really feel because I know, like, this is stupid. I mean, I know, like, I'm in this consciousness where the roller coaster is going down, and it's kind of in a way, it kills the joy out of a lot of thrilling experience. I won't say it kills the joy, but it's like you get a different you because you know that you're not the human anymore. You're just there, and you're always there, no matter what. You just don't get scared anymore for no reason because there's nothing to be scared about. So Uh, I recently had this experience, like maybe 6 months ago, right? Where there's like a slingshot. I don't know what's it's called, a slingshot sport where they attach you, like you're the slingshot. They attach you to a slingshot, and they have this whatever mechanisms, right? And they pull you to the through the physical elasticity. They use certain kind of chain pulley system, and they pull you using elasticity, and they release you. And you are the catapult, and you're being released, and you go up really high, really fast because you have been shot up, and then you fall down. But I didn't feel any, like, I loved it. I want to do it again, but I didn't feel scared because, and it just feels different. I mean, it feels when you have had a few mystical experiences. those kind of adventure sports. So I want to try bungee jumping and skydiving, right? But only for the reason that I know that that is going to have a significant impact on my consciousness. The first time I just know this, the first time I'm going to do skydiving or bungee jumping, um, it's just going to hit different. I'm telling you, it's going to be different because my consciousness has shifted. I no more, um, like, how do I say this? How do you communicate the stuff that's very difficult to communicate? Like, it's a, you just, it's just different. It's just different, but it's worth it. You can't say it's fun or something, but it's just worth it. It feels amazing in some sense. Really, like I said, it's the highest point of anyone that anyone can really achieve in their life, in their lifetime. Um, so I mean, when people have awakening experiences, they just kind of linger around that. I mean, that's why if you have the opportunity to, so first of all, the funny thing about awakening is like there's such a thing as closeted. You know how they have closeted gay people. You know, like there are more gay people than you know. Like if you search on Google, how many people in the world are gay, you'll come up with some statistics, right? But those statistics are based on the fact that whoever is not closeted, but there's something as a closet, there's something like a closeted gay, right? Like someone who has will not admit that they are homosexual or something, or they are bisexual. But enlightenment or awakening is something like that. There are a lot of you. I bet I can bet there are a lot of people in this world who who have had mystical experiences, but because they're so afraid of those mystical experiences, they will never admit. They will never admit. They will not. They'll say, forget about it. Who's gonna, like, they'll think, I'm not touching that one. It's like that. Like, I'm not going into that rabbit hole ever again. They're gonna think of it as a rabbit hole. They're gonna think of it as like I have a see, they'll think of it like I have a crazy side, and I don't want to ever venture into that crazy side ever again. But yeah, I mean, it's just that. It's just I'm not judging anyone, but it's just how it is. I don't. I mean, earlier, I used to whenever I used to have these kind of realizations, I used to feel bad, or I used to feel like I used to get negative about these stuff. Um, but not really. I mean, it doesn't matter because see, when you are conscious, you can see that everything just is. But the important thing is, and I cannot stress this enough, it's the fact that awakening or consciousness is elastic. It's always changing. It can contract. So what I'm doing now is I'm back on my meditation practice because I was kind of off because the more awakenings you have, people tend to have this notion that, once you're awakened, you can stop meditating. And, because you are awakened now, so you are enlightened. So what's the point of meditating? Not really. Because I keep telling this that awakening is not a permanent state. You can come down from it very easily because you are still here in this surrounded by unawakened people. So you're going to have your normal everyday chit chat and your celebrity gossips and your workplace gossips and your work stuff and your family stuff and your relationship stuff and all that, right? So in amidst all that, if you don't take out time to meditate or basically the point is to remember that that you are who you are, your true nature, reminding yourself of that. I'll give you another example, but you have to promise that you cannot take it out of context or You have to understand this example for what it is. So the example is, I'm going to give you an example of Islam, but it's just an example. I don't, the moment I'm going to bring any religion into this, see, the mind has a tendency to corrupt the truth. The mind will always try to corrupt the truth. So the moment I said Islam, now I know that if you identify with that religion in some way, you're going to be like, oh, yes, I'm excited. He's going to talk about my religion. I don't want to think, I don't want to make you think in that sense. I'm just using it as an example because I think this is a good example. That's all. So the example is that in Islam, they have this rule, like they have to pray 5 times a day, right? So the reason why that rule was made, at least that is what a lot of people think, a lot of intelligent people think, is to remind the ordinary human being that they're not human, that they are God, that they are the all knowing, that they are the creator. Um, that is what the purpose of the 5 times prayer a day is. That you're supposed to remind yourself that, oh, yeah, I'm in Maya, I'm in illusion, and this is my time. So they have 5 times a day in different time of the day. They have prayers, right? So right now where I am, it's 4:30. Okay, for 4:30 in the evening. So they probably have. I'm not really sure, but they have a prayer time right now. Maybe somewhere around this time. So the point of this prayer would be, is for an awakened person, at least an awakened person would see it this way, that, oh yeah, oh, I was working, I have to, it's my time to remind myself of who I am, my true nature. So the point is that, and in Islam is very strict about it. In Islam they say you have to, doesn't matter whether you're sick or you're busy, you have to pray 5 times a day. And the reason they're strict about it is they probably realize the significance of it, is the significance of reminding yourself, because you're gonna forget, because you live um, in this matrix. If you live in the matrix, you have to remind yourself, right, that you live in the matrix. Because just the fact of knowing that you live in the matrix is not enough, because you're gonna forget, because you're still in the matrix. See, when you in that sense, like again using is in a figurative sense, not being literal here, using the matrix and the, if you think of like Neo, you're Neo and you take the red pill, um, just don't get out of the matrix. You're still here, even though in the movie, forget about the movie. I'm just using that concept of matrix as an example to illustrate a point. The point is that you will always be in the matrix until you die as a human. So, in your entire journey as a human, um, you're gonna have to keep taking the red pill again and again. There's no such thing as one time you take the red pill and that's it. Like, you're gonna have to meditate, you're gonna have to do consciousness work. You're gonna have to do something. You're gonna have to smoke marijuana. I don't know what it takes. You're gonna have to take DMT. Uh, but yeah, you're gonna have to remind yourself. Simple as that. Otherwise, you will forget. I forget. I forget all the time. That is how I know. That is how I know that that you can't forget, because I forget. I've had multiple awakening experiences. I know what awakening is, but still I forget, because I come down from that. I come down to my, hey, I'm a human, that self. Which is fun. Everything is fun, but it's just that once you realize what awakening is, nothing else feels that. Everything feels like, yeah, it's all right. But the awakening is like the top boss. So once you have driven a Ferrari, or once you've driven a Lamborghini, everyday car, right? Like maybe your car, whatever it is, it'll feel like, oh my God, this is just an ordinary car. I want to drive the Ferrari again, right? So once you have driven, I'm just using these as examples. Obviously, I'm going to have to remind you, because see, the mind is very deceptive. The moment I say Ferrari, Lamborghini, you're going to get all excited and you're going to think of, They'll start comparing Awakening with Ferrari, which has completely no connection. But it's just like that. I mean, all I'm saying is like, it's just trying to illustrate or explain Awakening using different figurative stuff that you can relate to. I'm trying to relate Awakening to you from the point of view that you can understand. Or maybe you do. I mean, you're just here to remind yourself or something. I don't know. See, I know what Awakening is, but I still watch videos about Awakening on YouTube from time to time because I forget. I have to remind myself. And frankly speaking, I'm waiting for my next Awakening experience. So the more I culture this, see, even like, because the fact that I make these videos, even if I make these videos like these, where I have to force myself to talk about it, it will help me a lot. It will make, it is already working on my consciousness and I can feel it. Um, and that's how it is. I mean, um, I don't know how much more I wanna continue with this video because it's already more than an hour long. But the point is that, um, if you watch this entire video, this, by the way, I tell you, listen to it at night, like use it as a podcast or something. Just play it at night and watch this entire video, like you watch Leo Gura videos, right? Watch this. This is awesome. This has a lot of stuff. It's valuable. This video is really valuable. So the point is that in this video, like if you watch at later points, Mr. Peter Alston, he'll be talking about, Leo Gura will ask him this very important question. So what happens after awakening? What happens as far as like your everyday life goes? Are you able to do a job? Are you able to live an ordinary life, at least as far as working a job is considered, like going to your workplace, right? Because a lot of people are scared about awakening because they think that awakening will destroy their ordinary life, in the sense how ordinary human beings live, or your everyday life, where you go to job, you have a job and you work, um and earn money and stuff, and you have maybe relationships and stuff. I'll tell you, and Mr. Peter Ralston will say that no, it doesn't work. I mean, he says you can be an enlightened surgeon, you can be an enlightened doctor, you can be an enlightened whatever teacher, you can drive your car, you can everything is fine. But I'll tell you that it's not really that simple. When you have had a few mystical experiences, you just realize that you're not a human, you're something beyond that. So you lose interest in human stuff. You lose interest in like the stuff that humans are interested in, like everyday stuff. So it kind of changes, and it kind of does have a big impact on your financial life. It can have, I mean, and a big impact on your financial life or your relationships. But yeah, you have to be mindful of that. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, that is not something that is discussed more often. Yeah, so that's the video. I mean, I'm thinking of closing it here. And another thing is, like in my other videos, I just now that I'm making videos about awakening and enlightenment, which is something that I feel like, why, like that is, if I want to make a video, why not make a video about awakening? Because nothing else, making a video, see, I can make a video whenever I think of making a video on for YouTube. I can make a video of 1,000 different topics, right? But particularly, why awakening? Because nothing else seems interesting to me, frankly speaking. I used to be interested in video games. Now, not so much, because I know that this is a video game. So it's like, I know that I'm already in a video game. So why would I be interested in playing a video game in a video game. It just feels weird to me. I mean, being interested in different stuff, even though I'm not saying like I don't play video games. Yeah, in fact, I was thinking about doing a gaming video for my next video. It's just that I just feel a very weird something when I think of making other kinds of videos. It just feels weird. It feels like when you have had mystical experiences, all you want to talk about is that. Like, because nothing else, everything else feels beneath it in some way. It just feels beneath it. Anyways, that's my current life challenge, and I hope to, I don't know, let's see what happens with that. But I just want to make other videos. I see. I want to make videos about other mundane stuff. Like recently, I was watching this YouTuber. He's a very like this, I don't know if you're aware of this this YouTuber who's there are some YouTubers in UK specifically, or maybe they also do it in America. They do auditing videos. Like they will go to random places and they will harass people, and they will in the name of auditing, like they will say like, what they will do is they will carry a video camera and a drone camera, and they will fly a drone and record random industries and factories. Like they will go to random places. Like in one video I saw they went to a hotel. In another video I saw that they went to a car showroom, and they just record these, and they want to be confronted because their content is that these people will confront them, and then they will tell them to stop recording, and that they will say like, no, they are legally entitled to record, and that will infuriate the person in front of them, maybe the whatever, like the employees there, the security guards especially, and they will confront them. In some videos they will have a physical confrontation, and that is their content. It's like paparazzi kind of content. When you know how paparazzis create content out of harassing celebrities, and they post those on social media, and they get a lot of views. That's kind of like that. So the point is, I'm just trying to tell you that just because I've had mystical experiences, that doesn't mean that I'm not completely that. Yes, I know. I mean, I see. I watched the news. I watched whatever is happening with Russia, Ukraine. I'm following the news every day. I I follow what is happening in Russia versus Ukraine. I recently heard there's a crisis in Sudan. I know what is happening is in India. I know I'm completely aware of news. I follow everything that is happening around the world. And my point is that I just look at things in a different way now. I'm The perspective has changed. But yeah, in some ways I have lost interest in them, in the sense that I just feel like, is it even worth it? Like, so when I want to make a video, maybe some kind of a reaction video about some everyday stuff like that paparazzi kind of content I said, or maybe something that is happening in the news. Let's say I record the video, but then at the back of my head something will tell me, what's the point? Why did I even make this video? Even the fact that I'm making this video, in the back of my head there is something like a portion, almost like a portion of my consciousness, a tiny fragment of my consciousness is telling me that why even make this video? Like, because awakening is realizing that nothing exists, and everything that exists is this one singular entity, which is me, which is not the human me, but you get it. Like if you will only get it if you have had a few awakenings, or at least if you understand. Even if you've not had awakenings, you can still, if you're intelligent enough, you will understand. Um, but the point is, yeah, I mean, just something becomes weird. It's like, nothing is worth it, but still we are doing it. It's kind of nihilism, but you know how they say optimistic nihilism, kind of like that, I guess. But yeah, the only challenge here is the language, because I have to speak in a human language. Doesn't matter if it's English, Spanish, Hindi, Bengali, doesn't matter. Could be any language. but it's still a language, right? It's dualistic. How do you explain non-duality using duality? It doesn't work. To be non-dual, to understand non-duality, you have to become that. You have to become that. Yeah. Yeah, so that's it for this video, I guess, and catch you guys in the next one.